there, we are about to start. Give me just 1 second. Give me 1 second. I need to prepare a couple things. Okay. Oh. Okay, so hello and welcome to Rapper Live Show. As every Friday, we are here streaming for you. We are trying to teach some things related to 3D printing that we think it can be useful for our customers and our friends. I am Jay from the Rapper technical department, and he is Echo from the e-commerce department. First, as every day, Echo is going to do a brief introduction of the company, and then we will dive into today's topic, which is how to install Octoprint in a Raspberry Pi. So, okay, it's your turn.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Our company Octoprint was founded in 2012 with the object of producing the high quality filaments, and our company Octoprint was founded by a chemical energy with the experience in produce manufacturing and fascinated by the new opportunities that 3D printing will bring. And the name Octoprint came from reflect. right?
RepRapper project. RepRap project.
RepRap project.
Yes.
Project.
The RepRap project.
Movement aim need to create an open resource 3D printer. With the 3D printer, part will be easy to replaceable, and the movement plenty to fulfill the gymnast every family can have affordable 3D printers, and it will also it also will develop the how to say
To drive the development of the poor areas, yes, through 3D printing. That was the original purpose of RepRap project, you know. Maybe other day we can talk about the RepRap project. It's an interesting project indeed. Okay, but today, we are doing these live trainings, and we have like some episodes that are about FDM 3D printing. In our first episode, we saw how to slice, then how to use the 3D printer, how to print different materials. Then we did 2 episodes about LCD printing and resin printing. But today is the last episode of the season, and today we have like an open topic. We can choose something different, and we decided to choose how to use Octoprint, how to install and how to use Octoprint, which is I think is something very useful, and maybe some users they are afraid that this is maybe complicated, and yes, for that reason I want to show you how to do, because in fact it's not that difficult. It's not that difficult. But also, before starting, I want to show to our friends that, you know, the last print we did the past night is this guy. I don't know if you know who is this guy. He's from a movie. This recent movie called Suicide Squad, right?
Yeah. So maybe I think he can control me. Control my mind.
Yes, maybe yes. In the movie, it was very naughty character, right? We can take a look, you know, of this model. It's printed really well. This is printed with RepRapper silk PLA, the silver color, by the way. And yes, I think we are very proud of the current state of our material. It looks very good. Later I will upload some, because you can see, in fact we use Octoprint to print this part, because we took a time-lapse video of the process. And this thing here, this is called a wipe pillar, and we put this here because we want to avoid the stringing between the part and the point where the Octolapse takes the picture. Yes. So with Octoprint, with Octoprint, you can do things like this. You can maybe take some nice time-lapse video of your printing jobs. Okay, give me a second. I'm going to ensure that everything is good. The sound, okay. You can comment if you think the sound is good. Okay, so as I mentioned, today we are going to talk about Octoprint and how to install it in a Raspberry Pi. So maybe first we should start with the basic, right? Like, what is Octoprint? You know, what is Octoprint? Do you know?
Octoprint.
Yes. Do you use it every day, right?
No. I saw you use it, but I don't know how it works.
Well, Octoprint is a software that allows us to control the 3D printer, right? Normally, when we print, we maybe put the G-code file in the SD card, right?
Yes.
And the printer is going to read the commands, the G-code, directly from the SD card. But there is another way to do that. I mean, we can connect the printer directly to a computer and send the G-code files, the G-code commands. We can send through the cable. We can send from the computer to the machine, right? So Octoprint is a software that allows us to send G-codes to the printer, and well, yes, we can also control the temperature, we can move the axis, but all of that is made through G-codes. So basically what Octoprint does is to send G-codes to the machine.
But it is normal. If it's very normal, what is the difference?
The difference, what makes Octoprint special is that we can run the software and connect to the software using our web browser. So we don't, the computer that is running Octoprint can be connected to the printer and can be connected to the network, and we can connect to that computer through the network. So basically Octoprint is the software that allow us to control the machine, and the Raspberry Pi is the second part of this system. It's a small computer. I want to show to our friends what a Raspberry Pi is. I don't know if you have ever worked with one of these ones. The Raspberry is this circuit board that we have here, and this is basically a computer, a mini computer, right? So you can see it has, instead using a power supply, like the big power supply, it uses this one, the USB charger, right? And then here we have the ports. We have some USB ports, and we have here some Ethernet port to connect to the network. And here there is the HDMI, so we can connect directly a monitor or a screen to this Raspberry Pi, and this is the jack for the audio. And instead using the hard drive, the Raspberry Pi uses a SD card that is like here, right? So that is going to be our hard drive, our secondary memory. So this circuit has a processor, ARM processor, like the ones in the mobile phone, and it has some memory, it has some GPU, a small GPU. Yes, this one is the 3B+. Okay, so this is the Raspberry Pi. Raspberry Pi is a small computer that is going to allow us to run Octoprint, okay? And what is Raspbian and Octopi? Raspbian, we mentioned this is a computer, and this computer needs to run an operative system. Maybe in our desktop computer we use Windows, but the operative system run by this machine is called, it's Debian. It's a kind of Linux, but it's a kind of Linux that is adapted for this hardware, and it's called Raspbian. And finally, Octopi. Octopi is a package that includes the Octoprint and the Raspbian in one single file that we can install, conveniently install in our Raspberry Pi and work with it. Okay, so yes, feel free to make any questions that you may have about this, because yes, we are here to answer your questions. Okay, let's talk about how to install Octoprint. And first, I want to mention what are the hardware requirements. What do we need to install? Okay, first, obviously, we need the Raspberry Pi, the circuit board. In this regard, I want to mention that there are different versions of the Raspberry Pi. This thing started selling maybe in 2008, something like that, and that when it started selling, it was the the first version, Raspberry Pi like 1, right? And then they released the 2, and now we have 3 and 4. We have like 4 versions of these ones, right? So the Octoprint is going to run in the Raspberry Pi 2, Raspberry Pi 3, and Raspberry Pi 4. Some people maybe, I mean, the Raspberry Pi, the version 2 have some fame that not being able to run smoothly the hardware, but I can tell you that I have tried by myself, and I can tell you the Raspberry Pi, the version 2 can run this hardware, this software. In my opinion, the best choice is the Raspberry Pi 3, you know, because now it's like now I think they are available. You can buy the 3 and the 4, you know. The 3 is comparatively cheaper. The Raspberry Pi 3 maybe only needs, I don't know, $30, something like that.
So how much is it?
This one is maybe $30.
$30.
Something like that, yes.
Okay.
So the Raspberry Pi 3 it can run Octoprint perfectly. The Raspberry Pi 4 can also run Octoprint, of course, because it's much powerful, but it's probably too. I mean, we are not taking advantage of all the processing power of the Raspberry Pi if we use the Raspberry 4. So it's like overkill, you know. We are going to be wasting hardware resources. Also, the Raspberry Pi 4 maybe is going to consume more power, and also is going to produce more heat. So normally for the Raspberry 4 we need the active cooling. We need to install some fans there. So I recommend to use the Raspberry Pi 3. Okay, so we need the Raspberry. Also, we are going to need the SD card, of course. And in this regard, I want to mention that maybe if we don't want to, if we are going to take time lapse, take into account that the time lapse is going to, it needs a lot of space, of free space, because maybe a time lapse of 20 hours needs maybe almost 500 megabytes. So if you are going to take a lot of time lapse, I recommend going for a 32 gigabytes SD card. But I mean, if you are not going to do the time lapse, maybe with the 16 gigabytes, even the 8 gigabytes SD card, you can use. Okay, so we don't need. I can probably post this comment. Yeah, so apparently with the last firmware, we don't need to use the active cooling. Okay, well, we need a power supply. It's important choice, the power supply, because the Raspberry Pi, if we are not using a USB charger or a power supply that is going to give us like a stable current, maybe it will like switch off, it will disconnect, and we are going to have problems. So not every power supply is going to work well. I recommend, checking that the power supply we are using is good. The software Octoprint is going to tell us if it's having like problems with the power supply. But anyway, go with a good power supply. That's important. Okay, we need the USB cable to connect the Raspberry to the machine, to the 3D printer. In the case of the Ender 3, it doesn't use, it uses a USB format that is a little old, maybe a little. I can show you. This is called USB Mini. Yes. It's not the most common one, the micro one that we use in the mobile phones. So I don't know if the Ender 3, comes with one of these when you buy it. I don't think so. Yeah, and 2.5 amps. Yes. because it's very very sad maybe to spend the time to spend the time to make all the system work and having problems because the power supply, right? So yes, go for one of these 2.5 amps. Okay, and then we need, in case we are going to use Ethernet, the cable, we need Ethernet cable, of course. And if we are going to use, if we want to record, use the camera, we need a USB camera or of the Raspberry cam. Here I can show you, we have the Raspberry cam. Okay. The Raspberry cam is this thing here. It's not connected through the USB, but it goes directly to the board like this. This cam, I don't know, I don't love it. I think it's better to use USB cam. Almost every USB cam is going to work. Okay. Almost every USB cam is going to work. Okay. So that is about the hardware requirements. Then we can talk about the software requirements. Okay. So yeah, first we are going to need the ISO file that contains Raspbian and Octoprint, and that we can download from here.
From where?
We go. Let me show you my screen. We download from octoprint.org, maybe. Yes. So we need to go here and we need to download the last ISO. It's going to be here, right? Download Octopi 0.18. This Octopi includes the operating system for the Raspberry and the Octoprint. Yes. Also, we are going to need some software to copy the ISO file to the SD card. So I can see that now they are recommending a new tool that is something called Raspberry Pi Imager. Here, this one is the new method. This is a tool developed directly by the people who developed Raspberry, so probably it works well. But in the past we used this other thing, Balena. In the past we used this other, they recommended to use this Balena Etcher software, and well, this is very simple to use. We just need to connect the USB card using an adapter. We connect to the computer and we select here the file we just download, and we select as target the SD card and we flash. It will take maybe something like 10 minutes, but it will work. And then what more do we need? Okay, this is something optional, but I think is important. I use nmap, which is a software which is interesting. It's a software that is going to allow us to find the IP address of the Raspberry in the network. And this is not always necessary, but it's useful. Later I will show you how to use. The software is called nmap, and it's here. I can show you. It's a good tool, and also it's also optional, but it's good to have a way to connect to the Raspberry Pi using SSH, Secure Shell. And to do that, we will use this thing called PuTTI. Yes. So this software allows us to introduce here the IP address or the address of the Raspberry, connect to the Raspberry, and we can control it and do some things. Yes. Okay. So for the installation steps, the first thing we need to do, yes, is download the ISO file, and we need to copy the fresh ISO file downloaded to the SD card. We do with this Balena Etcher software or with the Raspberry installer that we just saw. And when the system is in the SD card, we need to connect the Raspberry to the network. That's important because the magic of the Raspberry is that we don't need to have our monitor and our keyboard connected directly to the Raspberry. The Raspberry can be just under the printer, and as long as the Raspberry is connected to the network, we can use our laptop or our other computer that is in the network to connect the Raspberry and control the printer. That is how it works. Okay. To connect the Raspberry, the easiest way is just to connect. If we can use Ethernet cable, that's the easiest way because it doesn't require any configuration. In comparison, if we want to use the Wi-Fi, we can use the Wi-Fi too, right? But we need to specify the name of the Wi-Fi network, and we need to specify the password to connect to the Wi-Fi network. And to do that, it requires some extra steps that they are not complicated, but especially if we don't know and we think this is complicated, we are going to save a lot of time if we just use the Ethernet cable. So if we have Ethernet cable, which is this, by the way, it's just a network cable, we just connect the Raspberry, and it will automatically, the router will automatically assign an IP address, and normally we can directly connect. We don't need to do nothing. In case we want to use Wi-Fi, we need to configure the Wi-Fi network in the Raspberry, and the configuration of this thing is made through some text files that are in the Raspberry. I want to show you, but I'm going to need. Maybe you can help me to find some, SD card adapter to connect the SD card to the computer.
Okay.
Yes.
Great.
I think maybe we have one of these here. Yes, give me a second. I will show you. Oh yes, here we have a couple. Okay, so you see this is the SD card, which is the hard drive of the Raspberry, and what we do is put here in our adapter and connect. Connect this thing, and then oh. Okay. I think it's okay. Okay, so maybe this is the SD card, okay? And in the SD card we are going to find these files here. For example, this one. Maybe I can make this bigger to show you. This file called Octopi network, you see, and Octopi TXT and Octopi WPA supplicant. These are the files that contain the configuration. So what we do is we need to edit this file and add the details of our network in this file. But we have an additional problem, that is we cannot use Windows Notepad to do this, because the Windows Notepad is going to modify the file in some strange way, and when we put it back to the Raspberry, it cannot read this. So normally the people will download something called Notepad++, something like that. I don't like that software. But anyway, we are not going to modify it. I am just going to show you how this file is inside. Okay. So okay, this is the configuration file, and you see all the this file contains code, but all the lines that are preceded by this hashtag are comments. So these are not like executed by the the program, the Raspberry. So we have here some instructions on how to use this file for the how to configure the Wi-Fi. We need to go here, and here you can see that there is some place where we are, supposed to introduce the Wi-Fi, the name of our Wi-Fi network, and the password here. So maybe if our Wi-Fi password is like, my home Wi-Fi 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, and the password is like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, something like this.
So all the Wi-Fi name is okay?
No, we need to introduce the Wi-Fi name of our Wi-Fi. Okay. Then, very important, we need to remove this hashtag before, because if we don't remove this, it's not going to be read by the Raspberry. So if we want to use this, we need to remove this, and this. And now the Raspberry is going to read this, and is going to set up the Wi-Fi. Okay. So we can do like this, right? We can put the SD card in the computer, edit this file. If we use Windows, remember we cannot use Notepad. I think this is not a good method. I'm going to exit without saving this. Don't save. By the way, all of these issues, if we are using a system with Linux installed instead Windows, we don't have this problem that that we cannot use Notepad. So I mean, it's going to be easier to use the Raspberry if we have a GNU system, right? Anyway, there is another method to do the same. I'm going to show you. This is normally how I do. Instead connecting the SD card to the computer using the adapter, what we can do is connect to the Raspberry using SSH, secure shell, and edit the file directly in the Raspberry. Let me remove this comment. Yes. So I can show you. What we need to do is to connect to this device, okay? Using SSH, using the shell here. So here we can introduce the name, the address of the Raspberry. When the system is fresh installed, the Raspberry is going to have this address, octopi.local, something like this. But in this one I modified to call it like octopi2. So here we will use this one. And you can see we can introduce here the address of the Raspberry. Okay. And now here we can accept this message, and okay, now we can log in the computer, the Raspberry, by, I mean, the default password and username is login as pi, and the password is raspberry. Okay, so now we are connected to the Raspberry, and here we can use this to edit the text file, the same as we did with the Windows system, but we can use directly on the Raspberry. For example, we would need to do something like this. No.
How could you?
Octopi. Okay, so this file I have in my screen now is the same file that we edited in my computer, in the Windows computer, but now we are editing directly in the Raspberry. So this is another way I think is better to modify and to connect the Raspberry to the Wi-Fi. Okay, now we can go. Yes, and okay, you can see I connected to the Raspberry using a name, octopi.local, but sometimes we cannot use that name because maybe our router is blocking, the name, something like that. So I want to show you a method that is different to find the IP address of the Raspberry. And we use this. No, we have a visitor here. This software called nmap. So if we are not sure of what is the IP address of the Raspberry, we can do in a couple ways. Sometimes we can just go to our router and try to find if our router has an option to tell us the IP address of the devices connected, but that is not always possible. Subtítulos. Ricardo quiere que pongamos subtítulos. No podemos poner subtítulos en Ricardo, but maybe podemos hablar en español. No, it's okay. Anyway, what I was. Yes, sometimes we have the problem that we cannot access the Raspberry because we don't know the IP address, right?
So what can I do?
What can I do? What we can do is use this software called nmap to find the IP address of the Raspberry. So I do like this. First, we need to know the IP address of our computer, and we can use the command ipconfig, okay, like this. ipconfig, okay. So we know this computer is in the network, and it has this IP address, right? So that means that the Raspberry that is in our same network is going to have an IP address which three first group of digits are the same. So the IP address of the Raspberry is going to be between 0 and 255, right? So knowing that we are here, what we do is we can copy this one, like here, and we use this software to scan our network. And it's going to scan all the devices between the IP, this one 0, and this one 255. Okay. Now we select here the ping scan because the other scans maybe are going to take more time, and we only want to know the IP address. And we hit the scan button. And depending on the size of the network, this is going to take more or less time, but finally it will give us a list of all the devices connected. because we are in a big network in the company, we have a lot of devices. But you see, we can.
Oh.
We have a lot, yes.
Yes.
These are all the devices connected. Maybe even our mobile phones, the printers, the computers, of course, the router. All of those, all of the devices connected to the network are going to have an IP address. The good thing is that this nmap is going to give us some extra information of the device connected, so we can see, the Raspberry here, is telling us that the Raspberry Pi has this address here. So now we know that this is the IP address of the Raspberry. So we can use this to connect to the Raspberry. Okay. We can close anyway. Yes. Okay, so now that we have the Raspberry connected to the computer, we can to the network. We can just directly, go here to our browser, and we just introduce the IP address of the Raspberry, and it will open the interface of Octoprint, right?
Yes.
The first time we do this, the system is going to ask us to introduce a password. So I think it's good to have a password here, because if you don't have, maybe someone in the network can use the printer. Basically, it can even cause some accident. Okay, so finally, now we are loading here Octoprint. Okay, you can see.
Oh, yeah.
This is Octoprint. This is the software.
Oh, it's so easy.
Ignore. Okay, here we can hit ignore. Okay, and yes, we can show you how to use. I think it's very simple. The only difficult part is maybe installing it. Once installed, to use it is very intuitive. Oh. Let me see one thing here. I don't know why it's a little having some connection problems. All right. Okay, it's okay. Okay, so we need to connect the Raspberry to our printer. So we are going to use this cable here. You can connect. The Ender 3 has the port like here. Okay. Now we connect here to the USB. Yes. And now that is connected, action needed. What is this? We have some connectivity issues that I think now is solved. Okay. Okay. Now we connected using the cable, right? The Raspberry to the printer. So now we just need to go here and hit the button connect. Okay. before doing this, we need to set up a printer profile. But this is very simple, in fact, because here in the options, where are the options? These are the profiles. So if we are creating a new one, for example, if we have an Ender 5, you know, we put like this, and we will tell, you know, the size and the shape of our printing volume for the Ender 3.
Just like we use laser.
It's just like the yes. We configure this like the slicer. We tell the nozzle diameter, the number of extruders,
Yes.
and after doing that, you know, we can connect to the printer.
So now we have an Ender 3 now.
Yes. So resistance ratio. Yes, it works very well. The how it connects very fast. So now you can see a state is operational. So we can control the printer. For example, I can go here to control, and I can, you know, oh, but we need to switch on the printer. Yes, that's important. But maybe this is disconnected or not. No, it's okay. So you see, now the printer is moving. So we have access to all the options that we have in our LCD panel, but we use it, yes, from our computer. Also here is when we can set up the temperature. For example, we can try, you know, heating up the extruder to 200 degrees, and we see how in this graph we have the target temperature and the real temperature, and we can see how it increases. It's very useful to see, you know, the PYD if the machine is well tuned, because we can see if the temperature oscillates, go ups and down, you know. That is useful. Okay, so here in temperature and control, basically, okay, and here you see we have the camera of the Raspberry in this case. In temperature in control, we can yes, set up control of the things of the printer. Then this is also interesting. We have a terminal here that is going to allow us to send the G-codes directly to the printer, and also to receive from the printer some information. So normally, when the printer is standby, it's going to send to us these G-codes, maybe every second. The problem is that this is going to take a lot of, you know, it's going like to close the terminal. So we can, you know, click here to suppress these messages, and the terminal is now like clean. And now I can, for example, send something like this one, M503503 is going to tell us some parameters of the printer, like the units the printer is working in, the steps of the axis. We can also modify and calibrate the steps of all the axes from here. This is very useful. The G-code viewer, yes, I can show you how this works. It's also good. To use this, first we need to load some G-code. The G-codes, by the way, can be loaded from this screen, from this window. Here, if we can upload something from our computer, and when it's already uploaded, we select the G-code, and we are going to see here like the estimated printing time, the size, and when the G-code is loaded, we can use this G-code viewer, to see how this is going to be.
Oh.
It's very nice. We can see each layer, so maybe we can decide if we need to change something, or we can understand better how the print job is going to want to go. If we think everything is ready, we can just hit the print button, and then the printer will start executing the G-code file, just as when we use the LCD. Okay, and finally, many people use the Octoprint because they like the time lapse. They like to see the time lapse. Not only the time lapse, but because you can connect the webcam. If you have this Octoprint, you can maybe monitor your printer, and you can maybe check if the printer is having some problem, so you can stop it. That's very useful. Basically, you can see the print job from this control window. So if we put the camera like here, we can from time to time connect and just see if the print job is well, if we need to maybe stop because it went like spaghetti. It's useful. But also we can use the camera to take some nice pictures there, and and create a time-lapse video. Those options are controlled from this time-lapse tab here. Basically, we have two time-lapse modes. One is going to take a picture maybe the timed option. We can tell, okay, take a picture every 10 seconds or every 13 seconds, whatever, we can choose. And the on set change option will take a picture every time the printer raises up the set axis. So if we have this time-lapse option activated, when we print something, the camera will start recording the time-lapse, and after the print job, the time-lapse will be available here. Maybe we can see some time-lapse. What is this? Batman bust. Let's take a look.
So just like we saw the video that the loser goes up, and but he's in the same point, right? Same line, yeah.
This is the standard time-lapse. Yeah. This is not the Octolapse. We have like two ways to do the time-lapse: the standard time-lapse and the stabilized time-lapse, but are different. The standard time-lapse is very slow. I can show you the video I record from Starro the Conqueror. Let me see. Yes. What? Okay, so this is the stabilized time-lapse. Sorry, because the image is like horizontal. We will fix that later. And you see in this kind of video, the extruder is always in the same position. So we can have a very clear image of how the part is printed. And in contrast, the normal time-lapse oh, who is this? This is Batman. And this is also a Octolapse time lapse. Yes, I don't know. I think all of these videos here are it's not the standard time lapse. So maybe other day we can show. Okay. So well, that was all. I think we saw almost everything. How to install the software, how to run it. Maybe the part about how to install the printer was a little complicated. Maybe for the next time I will try to arrange better the information, because yes, this is probably easier to do than to explain, you know.
Okay.
But anyway, if you have any questions, you can always ask us. I will try to publish the links to the software we use in this presentation, and maybe create some tutorial. But yes, so I think yes, for today is okay. If you want to comment or to ask something, now is the moment. I don't know if Ricardo is still in the live stream. He mentioned that we should use the subtitles. Maybe the next time we can do this in Spanish. I don't know. Maybe in different time zone. We should do, right?
Okay.
I don't know.
Maybe.
Okay, so well, thank you very much for your time and to being with us. And next day we will start again from episode 1. We will see how to slice something using Cura. And yes, I hope we we will see you there the next day. Okay, so thank you very much and bye bye. See you next time.